Congratulations on finishing Chapter 2. Today we're going to start on Chapter 3, which we'll be learning some things that will help us solve equations. So the first thing we're going to do today is the addition property of equality. And all it says is that adding the same number to both sides of an equation does not change the solution to the equation. And the fancy way to say that is in symbols. If A equals B, so we know these two are the same, then you can add the same thing to both sides and it's not going to change the equation at all. It's going to keep it balanced. It's going to keep it equal, going to keep it fair. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. So you can add something to one side as long as you add it to the other. So in symbols, the way that looks is A plus C equals B plus C. So be sure you write this down so you're familiar with it. And I've done some examples. And I'm trying to show you in red what I've added to each side of the equation. So the first one, x plus 5 equals negative 7. In order to solve this, I need to know what x equals. Well, I need to get my variable by itself. So to get it by itself, I can add a negative 5 to the left of the equal sign as long as I add a negative 5 to the right. And in doing so, I find that x equals negative 12. So hopefully you can follow this as you write it. And over here, I just simply showed you that these are easy to check. Probably should spend a little bit of time checking it to make sure you got it correct. If I put what I found x equal to is negative 12 back into my equation for x and work it out, you'll see that it equals negative 7. So I got it correct. Another example, negative 6 equals y minus 8. If you need the variable by itself, I can add an 8 to both sides to get rid of the 8 over here because that becomes 0. And when I do that, I notice that 2 equals y. And since I can check it, I can put 2 back into my equation for y and work it out and see that negative 6 equals negative 6. So I got it correct. So whatever you do to one side of the equation, you need to do to the other. You check it by substituting in what you found for x back into your equation. This one looks a little different, but it's the same just because it has a decimal. So x minus 5.4 equals 2.3. Well, if I add 5.4 to both sides, I'll find that over here it becomes 0, so I get my variable by itself, and x equals 7.7. And I can check it, not going to this time, but if I checked it by substituting it in for x, you would see that it does equal 2.3. You can do the same things. We will do some of the same things with word problems. So this one, it just says, in a basketball game, Parker scored 18 points. This was 4 points higher than his average. What is his average? And I'm just going to say that A equals his average. And since he scored 4 points higher than his average, and 4 points higher was 18, I can say A, his average, plus 4 more equals 18. And if I add a negative 4 to each side, and sometimes, and it's okay if you say if I subtract 4 from each side, because that's what you're doing in essence when you add a negative 4. When you do that, you'll see that A equals 14, so his average was 14 points per game. Another example, the weekly rent on an oceanfront apartment was increased by $32. The new rental cost is $475. What was the previous rent? So this is the rent that we don't know. X, but we know it was increased by $32 and now it's $475. So this is what it was. So if I write this equation, I need to get my variable by itself. I can subtract 32 from both sides, which in essence is adding a negative 32. So when you do that from both sides, your variable's by itself, and you find that the original rent cost was $443. And if you substitute that back in, you should find that it is correct. And that is your lesson on, what was the title of this lesson? Let's go back and see. The addition property of equality. And I added my dogs. Since it was a short lesson, just thought it'd be fun, add something cute. So have a nice evening, and I will talk to you later, and we'll do some work just like this. Thank you.